With that, let's begin hour number 1 of the Saturday special right here on KSCO.
Josh Stevens.
MZ, Michael Zwerling.
With the help of our esteemed Dave Michaels, who's here to tell us about the Dave Cave latest goings-on and the latest delivery goings-on. I admitted that I had not come up with a personal question for you, so I asked him for his suggestion. He came up with a great one.
All right, what did Dave Michael spring?
Are you ready for the masked world?
Oh my goodness, no, I'm already fumbling and just like, I've tried a couple days before getting prepared to get with the tasks, and I'm already like forgetting my keys or forgetting my wallet or this or that. It's just another thing that I have to remember to bring with me, and it's just like, I am not ready for the masked world, MZ.
That's one of the reasons why I escaped. But the main reason is that I wanted to be in the studio. I didn't want to be a virtual host, or a disembodied host for the Saturday special.
Absolutely.
With our special guest today. I really
that.
wanted to come and hang out in person, so I did. But the other reason is to get the hell out of San Francisco, which is... it's really insane up there, not realizing that Santa Cruz does what San Francisco does a day or two afterwards.
Yeah, right? It's literally a carbon copy of policies.
Oh, God. So, anyhow, you're not ready. I'm sort of ready. But I wonder if there are going to be lawsuits.
What makes it sort of ready for you?
Well, I have a mask. But when I wear it, I'm breathing recycled air. I've never been able to use them. I don't understand how dentists and people who use masks every day as part of their work.
You have to shave, too.
Can do it. That's right. I hadn't even thought of that.
Yeah,
but that's no problem for me. I did 3 years, of looking like my friend says, a homeless person. And she didn't want to be hanging out with a homeless person, so she convinced me to shave.
Most excellent.
Yeah.
yeah, that's the other one, guys. If you're listening, if you are wearing the masks and you're actually wanting to take it seriously, you do have to shave. Otherwise, they won't be as effective. The hairs will open up the coverings that the mask would normally cover.
But not only that, if you have shaved and you're as clean shaven as I am, there's still, and you have the best seal you can possibly have. That's a bad thing. I figure I'll suffocate. And I wonder if there will be if there can be a class action suit after I've passed from suffocation, where we can. You know me, I never like to take personal responsibility for anything.
You mean after you've expired?
Yeah, after I've expired, right.
Yeah.
It'd have to be my heirs who would join or maybe even start a class action suit. In memory of the people who died only because they wore masks and suffocated to death. Because who wants to be... It can't be good for you to be rebreathing recycled air, which doesn't have oxygen in it. It has carbon dioxide, hopefully if it's not carbon monoxide, because then they won't last long at all.
The thing that irks me about this whole mask requirement is it seems eerily similar to how the Middle East mandates their women to wear, hijabs. Like, it feels kind of like that, because we're being told we have to wear something, and it's just like, I don't like being told what to do, especially by the government sometimes. And that's just one of them where it's just like, wow, okay, we have to put on these masks, otherwise you can't be a part of society. You have to stay at home.
I shouldn't tell people this, but not a one of us is wearing a mask here in our business.
Absolutely. We couldn't. We would sound so ridiculous through these 10,000-watt hot mics.
Yeah. Do you think that it's a really stupid thing that I just admitted?
No,
and that
not
people
at all.
and that the sheriff's deputies will be waiting for us when we emerge from the radio, and they'll take us into custody.
They might be jealous. Also, some of them are probably still not wearing masks for being.
You have that great story. I can't wait to follow up on that.
Oh my gosh!
Is there anything new to that? To your being cited for $1,000?
There isn't. Like I said, the only thing is the mail-in of the correction of the violation number because they forgot to add a 0.
Oh.
But other than that, yeah, it looks like I'd still have to take care of it then. There isn't even a trial by written declaration option or anything of the like.
It's my understanding that you're going to have plenty of support from Rosie and Olson and whoever else you want from around here.
I'm definitely far less worried about it than I was on day one.
Okay.
Let alone upset.
Good. And of course, I would be happy to join it, but that might harm you, might hurt you more than it would help you.
Of course.
Yeah.
That could result in a Hurricane MZ coming through the courthouse.
Okay. Dave Michaels, what's up in the Dave Cave? You've been very, very busy doing personal deliveries of our...
Right. And I want to say again, thank you, MZ. You know, I think I mentioned this before, but we've been getting a lot of support from Monterey County, Salinas, Monterey, Carmel, down in that area, Prunedale. A lot of support, we got a lot of fans down there. I'm really, really surprised, and I shouldn't be because we have 10,000 watts. This is your favorite radio station.
And you got a lot of callers from Monterey County all the time.
We do. But to actually see them, want to support the radio station. Oh, shoot, I can't remember the guy's name, but he wanted to specifically do it to support you and the radio station. So I think it's great. I love going out there and meeting people. So here's the deal. Here's the way it's working out. The Dave Cave is open only for pickup, or I guess that's about it. Just call me. I can arrange for the stuff to be picked up, right? I'm out there every Saturday from 10 a.m. till 2 p.m. Or the way it's working out is I'm in Salinas on Thursdays, Monterey on Friday. So if you want to order some products to have delivered to you, or you can, meet me somewhere and pick them up. Thursdays, I'll be in Salinas. Fridays, I will be in Monterey. The rest of the time, I'm up here in Santa Cruz County. But if you're in Monterey County and you want to schedule a drop-off, I'm in Salinas on Thursdays, Monterey on Fridays, until this whole coronavirus thing is over. And today, by the way, is, the 25th? Masks are now mandatory if you're going to go out there and be doing business. So if you are going to stop by the Dave Cave, do not come in unless you have a mask. Even then, just knock on the door and we'll get you hooked up. But stop by the Dave Cave. We're open for business 10 a.m. till 2 p.m. And I'm dropping off.
You have a new shipment too, right?
Yes. And I'm dropping off orders in Salinas on Thursdays, Monterey on Friday.
And suppose someone from Big Sur, which I understand is the only place that we're the only station that can be received in Big Sur. At least we were a few years ago. So someone from Big Sur calls. Would you accommodate them?
I would love to go out to Big Sur.
So you're sort of looking for an excuse.
That's it, MZ. I'm looking for an excuse to go to where you are.
Yeah.
218-5726. If you're in Hollister, I'll go four-wheeling. If you're in Big Sur, I'll go hiking. If you're in Monterey, I'll go rock crawling. If you're up in the San Lorenzo Valley, I'll find some place to park off the road and go to that fantastic park. I am looking for an excuse just to go to your neighborhood. 218-5726. We've got the best stuff on the planet, MZ. Take care of your immune system. We've got the Healthy Start Pack, Arthrodex for your pets, glucogel for your joints, which is like magic. I don't know what Dr. Wallach puts in there. I'm pretty sure a high percentage of magic is in that stuff, the glucogel, because it works fantastic, unbelievably. This is
that's the only thing that I don't take on a regular basis.
Oh, man. That's one of the most important products that we have.
Okay. Yeah. I have now reformed.
Glucogel, Tangy Tangerine, OsteoFX, my 3 favorites for humans. Arthrodex for your 4-legged friends.
Is it against the law for humans to take Arthrodex?
I don't know, but I've been tempted to try. Because it smells really good. It smells like beef jerky. So, it actually smells like beef. It smells really,
it's
really good. It's
supposed to be an additive for your aminals as food.
Yeah.
So why can't it be an additive for our oatmeal in the morning or something? Isn't it nice and crunchy and delicious?
You could try that, MZ, and let me know how that works out.
All right.
Okay.
Very good. Thank you, Dave Michaels.
And if you're not sure your pet's going to like it or not, my cat loves it. She licks it right off her pet food. No problem. If the cat loves it, a dog's going to love it. Any animal will love it.
How cool. I love that.
I'm out there 10 to 2 every Saturday. MZ.
Thanks, Dave. Take care. Talk to you.
Good morning. A brighter day is here. Good morning. May we bring you cheer.
We've got time. We've got tunes. We've got time, tunes, and temperature.
Get up and go, it's today, on KSCO Radio.
What can I say? What can I say? I'm so excited. I don't think I've ever been so excited. I mean, I get to talk to the, what do you call it, the custodian of a world destination restaurant today for the whole show. Are you excited too, Josh?
Much excitement.
Morning. Now stay right here on KSCO Radio.
Is there anyone who has been to the Shadowbrook restaurant who does not agree that this place ranks way high up on the list of top romantic and unique restaurants in the USA and possibly even the world? If so, I would be surprised. And such a person would probably be as unique as the Shadowbrook itself. Well, guess what? Ted Burke, the co-owner of Shadowbrook, has been booked as our guest on the next KSCO Saturday special. Personally, I can't wait to hear the history of the Shadowbrook, which opened the same year KSCO went on the air, 1947, from Ted Burke himself, who has earned a far-reaching respect and reputation as a restaurateur as well as an all-around good guy. Join us for a spirited discussion of the past, present, and future of the restaurant industry this Saturday, 10 a.m. to 12 noon, right here on We're All Sick of Hearing This, but we are all in this together, and we will get through these difficult times. Radio, FM 104.1 and AM 1080 KSCO. So the first, pardon me, the first thing Ted Burke said to me when I came in and he was sitting in the lobby here at the radio station is, how are we going to squeeze 2 hours out of this? And I said, watch us. I could talk 8 or 10 hours easily with no callers at all about the Shadowbrook. Couldn't you, Josh Stevens?
Easily. We did 3 hours last week. That was like a whole 33% or 50% increase in Saturday special.
So,
one day.
Listen, you know, being the selfish person that I am, I'm going to start off with a selfish type question for Ted Burke. Our very, very first question for Ted is going to be, how does it feel to be an all-around nice guy, and what can I do to have some of that rub off on me?
You're much too kind in the describing me that way, but I am very fortunate that I'm in the business where I see a lot of people, both employees and customers, guests, not only from Santa Cruz, but from around the world. And I really enjoy people. And I think that is never tired on me. I do look forward to my times off where there are no people around, but I really love going to work and being around people. And so perhaps that's rubs off to them in that manner.
Well, like me, I'm not old enough to have started KSCO, which started in 1947. You're not old enough to have started it when it started in 1947. But when I was growing up in Santa Cruz, I was born in 1951. And I remember one of my classmates, in third or fourth grade or something, was a guy named Taylor Philippe. Yeah, and his father, Ed, I think?
Correct.
Yeah, was, he was known as the owner of the Shadowbrook, but I think he had a partner named Brad McDonald or something. Is that correct?
That's exactly correct.
Please give us the history of the Shadowbrook. And when you found out about it, did you grow up here too, Ted? Or?
No, I grew up in Sacramento. My introduction to Santa Cruz was fortunate enough, my parents had a beach house here in Santa Cruz, which they would rent out to a school teacher during the year. And then in the summertime, my mom would come down and spend the summer here. My dad, who was an attorney, he and I would, of course, work during the days of the summer and then come down every weekend. And the last 2 weeks of summer, I was fortunate enough to be able to quit work, my summer job, and spend 2 weeks in Santa Cruz. So that's how I got introduced to Santa Cruz. But I have a story to tell you about being old enough and comparing my age to the age of the business, we have an orientation process when we have new employees. And part of that orientation process is to share our history with them so that they know a lot about Shadowbrook in case they're asked. And we're very proud of our history. And as you mentioned, the restaurant was started in 1947, October of 1947. And I had a manager who was on vacation, so I was substituting doing the orientation presentation for a group of new employees. And I got a question when I mentioned that the restaurant started in October of 47. And a young lady raised her hand and asked, "Did you start it?" And my jaw dropped. I was stunned. I didn't really know what to say.
How old do you think I am?
Yeah, and so the only thing that popped into my mind, I just said, I hope you're not working in our accounting department. And she said, "No, hostess, why?" And I said, "Oh, never mind."
That's a great story.
But Brad, I was fortunate enough to know Brad and get to know him and considered him a good friend. Ed, I had met, but he lived in Hawaii during those days where Brad was, of course, a local guy here.
So what days were those? 60s, mid-60s, 70s, or?
The restaurant started in 47, and Ed Philippe and Brad McDonald were the only two owners. They found the property about in 1945, towards the end of World War II. And the story goes that Brad's mother lived nearby, and she was looking for her cat, and he offered to go try to find the cat. And he saw this trail going down a hill and this abandoned house there at the bottom. And so they looked into it, and I think Brad said that for the property, they purchased it, and it included the frontage, the river frontage there, the Soquel Creek frontage, on both sides.
Oh, really?
From the restaurant all the way down to the village for $8,000. And then they found out that they could make another, I think he said $100 a month on some GI program if they had a business. So they decided that they would make a restaurant out of that place. And they lived in the building, both with their families.
So it was a big enough house.
Yeah, and there was a house kind of at the top of the hill right now where the parking lot is too.
Okay.
And there was a well there, et cetera. But anyway, they lived in it and fixed it up, and then in October of 47, they opened it up as a restaurant, and it was seasonal. It was closed from January 2nd to April 1st. It had a seasonal liquor license. And there's a great story, and I'll tell you later about it if you want to know about this.
I want to know.
Okay. The January 2nd, Brad and his wife, Bee was her name, they would vacation and spend the winter in Palm Springs. And so they were getting ready to leave that January 2nd, and they were doing the last minute cleaning, sweeping, and Brad was sweeping by the front door and getting the leaves out of the way, et cetera. And the back of the broom put a hole in a window, a small pane window that was part of the front door. And so they had the car packed. They're just ready to go. So he didn't really want to, have to take time to get a glazier to come in and replace the glass pane. So he reached up and took some ivy that was on the outside of the building there and just stuffed it in the hole and said, "That'll keep the rain out, and we'll fix it when we get back." And of course, when they got back 3 months later, that ivy had taken off and was trailing around the beams inside the bar area there. And that's how the ivy at Shadowbrook that still exists and goes around the beams started, was all because of a broken pane window.
Well, I'm trying to figure out, I mean, that's a huge building. It goes on and on and on. And for it to have housed two families originally, maybe it was a pretty big house to begin with, but I always thought that over the years you added to it.
Yeah, it's a pretty big building today. It wasn't always that way. In fact, it was originally, even before Brad had it, was a log cabin. built sometime in the 20s. And that log cabin part is the bar area today. And then it was expanded into a home, which its boundaries were just the what we call the fireplace dining room. It's the one that has a little balcony, and as you come down the stairs, there's 4 large tables and a big, huge fireplace. And that was the restaurant. And in fact, today, if you look at the in that room, you'll see a wall with holes in the wall, so to speak, and they were the old windows. And then the
where the bar is, or a different part?
Where the fireplace dining room is.
Got it. Okay, where you go down the stairs.
You go down the stairs.
And to the left, there's a little nook for a couple. Very nice. I'm trying to think of whether I would like that seat. Probably, yeah.
There are people who
unique.
will wait an hour not to sit there, as well as people who will wait an hour to sit there. And I don't know if this is, for radio too risque or not, but there's a story that I experienced there about that stair. And I was managing one night, and I noticed that people coming down the stairs would sometimes stumble. And that sometimes happened because people have never been there, and they're not looking down. They're kind of looking around at the beauty, beauty and everything and such. So it does happen, but it seemed to be happening more frequently than normal. And so I went up to investigate, and I went up the stairs, and I'm checking if all the footlights are on, and of course they're all on, and shining the path of travel well, and the handrails. No, they were all tight and such. And I looked for, is there any loose carpet here at the top or anything? No, it was all in good shape. And so I turned and started to come down the stairs, and the couple sitting at that stairwell were a young college couple celebrating, it was a prom. And the lady facing up the hill, up the stairs, had a prom dress on.
Okay.
And a prom dress was, I would say, one of those that I don't know how many dads will let their daughter out of the house wearing.
A mini skirt?
Not a mini skirt, but a very low-cut prom dress. And so what was happening was people were coming down the stairs to be seated and glancing over, and then being distracted and stumbling.
That's not too risque.
Good.
We did a joke. We did 4 Saturday special, like this program, where I invited people to call in with jokes and not keep it sort of clean as possible. And there were way more risque. And there were, in fact, we did a rerun. We're doing reruns of classic Saturday specials on the Friday 2 to 4 slot now.
Wow.
And I had asked Billy to grab the recording from, I think it was June of 1997, so what is that, 23 years or something, that was called the Best Joke Special. And we played it, and I got a very angry email yesterday from someone that said offensive. It said, the subject line said offensive. And I don't know what they heard on it, but there could have been lots of things, because there was a lot of stuff. If you're easily offended. And in fact, when we did those shows, we would put on promos if raw, risque, ethnic slur humor offends you. Do not listen to the next Saturday special. And of course, we knew that would attract a bigger audience than ever, but. So I answered this person and said, I'm sorry you were offended. But please let me know how long, just out of curiosity, let me know how long you've been listening to KSCO and how you discovered us, because I'm just fascinated by the fact that you can be offended by something that's 23 years old. And things are much worse now about what's acceptable.
Yeah.
So,
well, going back to that story, as everything we do at the restaurant, we try to use everything as a learning experience. And so that became part of our training for hostesses, is that if someone were wearing an outfit like that, would kind of exposing and inviting glances, that they be seated on the uphill side of the stairway and not the downhill side for safety reasons. And we always bring smiles when somebody asks why we do that.
At least you didn't bar people in those clothes altogether from sitting in that.
No.
You know.
Yeah.
That's good.
This was a safety issue, not anything more than that.
Well, I mean, that's what they say these draconian measures about wearing masks are and things like that. I don't want to get political, but you can tell it's really bugging me. Is it bugging you folks out there? Anyhow, we're talking with Ted Burke, co-owner of the Shadowbrook restaurant, and I sort of interrupted him in his telling of the story of the establishment of this world-class restaurant, and there's nothing like it anywhere that I know of, and it does have a worldwide reputation, and it's right here in our backyard on Wharf Road in Capitola. So did you ever, like, I had a dream that someday I'd own this radio station, you know, and could do talk radio. Did you ever have a dream that someday you'll own Shadowbrook? And
no.
So what happened?
So
how did that evolve?
Well, it's an interesting background. I own this, and I'm fortunate enough to be able to go to work every day at this beautiful restaurant, and it's the only restaurant I've ever worked at. And how it all started was in 1972. I was on my way to graduate school. I had gone to Santa Clara University, had military service to do afterwards because that's what was going on in those days. Came back because I hadn't finished enough to graduate, and came back in 71 and graduated. And in 72, I got accepted to a very prestigious graduate school for international business. And in preparation of that, because the school required a proficiency test in foreign language of the area where you intended to work, and I wanted to work in Latin America. I had gone to, as a student, in Mexico City twice, once as a high school student and then again as a college student. And I loved the people, I loved the cuisine, I loved the culture, et cetera. And so I wanted to work in South America. But I had never learned Spanish really formally. I had gone to Catholic schools and knew Latin, but had learned Spanish on the street. It was quicker to learn on the street than in the classroom. In fact, I had started a Spanish class in school and found out we were learning more in the street and then switched out of it. So anyway, I knew I was not going to do well in this proficiency test in Spanish and would have to take more language courses and business courses as part of my curricula for graduate school, and did not want to do that. So at that time, the Institute of Foreign Studies of Monterey, which is now part of Middlebury College, in conjunction with the military, and I think it's the Navy, has a language school over in Monterey, and they share resources. And they had a accelerated Spanish summer program, Spanish 1, 2, 3, and 4 in 8 weeks. It was 8 to 5, Monday through Friday, and language labs on Saturday. And I needed a job for the summer. And I used to have a wonderful summer job, surveying for the government, Bureau of Land Management, Department of the Interior. And I shouldn't say surveying. They surveyed. I cut the brush down so they could see.
Oh, okay.
And carried a lot of equipment. And we worked all over all over the western United States, 7 or 8 states here in the West. And sometimes for 2 weeks, sometimes for 2 months, depending on how the project was. So it was a wonderful job, and I got to see a lot of the country. But I couldn't do that and go to summer school. So I was looking for a job for the summer. And a friend of mine knew the manager for the Shadowbrook, who the owners had just bought it that spring when it was closed. And of course, they didn't inherit any staff because it was a 9-month liquor license then, and they didn't have any staff. They were closed. And so they were hiring people in order to open up for the summer.
Now, this was not the original owners.
No, these are. If you like, I can bring you up to date as what happened in ownership. Then.
Yeah, I'd love to do that.
So,
yeah, that is, people
sure.
get an idea.
So you mentioned Brad McDonald and Ed Philippe.
And Brad was a realtor / local entrepreneur, right?
Correct, and actually founder of Capitola as a city.
Really?
He led the incorporation of it. He was a very fascinating guy. So, and he also developed a nightclub on the beach in Capitola there called, by the kind of where the theater area is.
Okay.
Or the former theater there, called the Saba. And it was a Polynesian nightclub and very popular, et cetera. But it was destroyed in a fire. And Brad, being the type of entrepreneur and a Barnum and Bailey character, if there ever was one, while the fire is raging and the fire department's there trying to put it out, Brad runs inside and brings out a bunch of bottles and glasses and sells drinks. So,
wait, was the theater there, and this, what was burning down, was next to it?
You
or?
know, I don't know if...
Because that was a pretty old Quonset building, I thought.
The pictures that I've seen, I would think this would probably have been on the beach side of the theater.
Where there was a big hotel that in that whole area, right?
Yes, at one time.
Yeah.
And it might have been where that was. Well, unfortunately, Brad was underinsured when the fire happened, and so he had to sell his interest. And he sold his interest to a local attorney, and I can't think of his name, Frank Podesta, whose family was involved in San Francisco in the flower business, Podesta Valdocchi. And so the owners then were Ed Philippe, Brad's original partner, and Frank Podesta. And then, I don't know how many years that they operated the business, but Frank and his wife got divorced, separated and divorced. And in the property settlement, she ended up with a restaurant. Virginia was her first name. So the owners then became Frank Podesta and Virginia Philippe. And then Ed went over to Hawaii. I think his restaurant was called the Dolphin, and it was fairly well known in Honolulu.
Right.
And then in the spring of 1972, Mike Clark and his partner Mike McClellan they were owners of the Crow's Nest.
Yeah, therein lies the connection which continues today. We'll get into that.
Correct. Right? And so they, Mike Clark and Mike McClellan bought the Shadowbrook, fixed it up it needed some repairs and such that spring, and then it opened it up, and for the very first time, opened it up year-round. So the summer of '72 was the start of year-round service at Shadowbrook. In fact, some of the signs on the grounds there will say now open, they're old signs saying now open year-round. But that was, and I worked there as that summer job. But didn't leave. I was working quite a bit. A lot of people in the restaurant business like to have their time off, and they were offering up shifts and such. And I was working as much as I could, and I would take shifts nearly all the time they were offered. And I had paid off my car with working these extra shifts and doing well. And I thought, if I work one till the next semester of school, which would have been February, I'll have enough saved up that I won't have to work during graduate school, and I can just focus on my studies. And I wrote the school, and they said, fine. In fact, we suggest you go to our summer school, and you'll be back on target as far as your timing. And so I did that, and it was during that extra time, that extended time beyond summer, where I was approached to ask if I would consider being a third manager. And by a third manager is that they had two managers, a general manager and an assistant manager, both very accomplished. And they wanted a third manager because those two people, at that time Shadowbrook was open for lunch, and so there was basically 14 shifts a week. Lunch 7 days, actually 6 days, and brunch on Sunday. and dinner 7 nights a week. And they wanted somebody there, and it was too much for 2 people to do 7 shifts apiece. So they would bring somebody else in, and then that way everybody would have, either 4 or 5 shifts. And I remember very clearly taking a week to think about it, trying to talk myself out of it, and saying, this is not what you studied for. This is not what you're. But by that time, the restaurant bug had bitten me, and I was infected, so to speak. It's a unique, fun business, not for everybody. Has a lot of challenges, but I loved it. And
so you said yes to becoming a 3rd manager.
Correct.
In 1973.
About I started in the 72 as a waiter, so it was the late fall of 72. And probably, very late fall, like November, December, something like that. So for about 1973, where I was one of 3 managers. And then I don't know what year it was. I'm going to guess around 74, 75. The restaurant no longer served lunch, just wasn't, profitable for them, I suppose. I was not privy to all the accounting challenges in those days. It was just more operational was my side of it. Anyway, so they, one of the general manager who I referred to, his name was Steve Boysel. And Steve did a great job at Shadowbrook, and he wanted to, as a lot of people do, want to have their own restaurant. And he opened one, and it's the famous Farm restaurant that was on Soquel, where he was way ahead of his time, because he grew his own vegetables there at the farm and used those in a lot of the meals and the salad bar and such. So Steve left and prospered in what he was doing, and it left myself and a wonderful guy who's still a great friend, Gary Gates, who had great experience working, and I think what I've heard is the finest dinner house in Hawaii, Nick's Fish Market at the time. And Gary was elevated to general manager, and I was the assistant manager, and they no longer needed 3 managers because it was no longer open for lunch.
Right.
And so that's how things proceeded.
Okay, well, then there's still a great leap between being, a manager and being an owner. So how did that evolve?
Well, I made it clear that both, I think by observation as well as by message, that I loved the business and I wanted to look for a place of my own, and that I was never going to do it here in Santa Cruz and go into competition with these people who were so kind enough to give me a job and to mentor me. And mentor me. One of the reasons I took the job, Michael, was that it wasn't a babysitting type of manager's job where you fill out a bunch of forms every night and you count this and count that. The owners really enjoyed the thing that they enjoyed most about the restaurant business was the hammer nails fixing up part. Improving the grounds and improving the building, et cetera. And of course they did everything, including the menu development and all of that. But that was their favorite side, and so they turned a lot of the operational side over to their management for the decisions. Okay. So we really ran the place. We weren't babysitters. And it's one of the reasons I took the job initially, is I knew that whether it was going to be a career or not, I would learn a lot.
Yeah.
And I learn a lot whether...
But never was it in the back of your mind that you could become the owner there.
No, it was
just an experience,
right.
And the owners, stop along the way.
Yeah, and the owners supported me. In fact, I took them to Sacramento to show them, I thought, a really unique property on the river. It was the old River Lines, which is a kind of a water freight business building. It had beautiful beams, and I don't know what year it was built, but probably late 1800s or something. Uh-huh. But the city didn't want to use it. They used it for brick storage instead. But anyway, I took the owners to Sacramento to take a look at that and saying, this might be a good location for one. And they took me to Southern California. They had a fraternity friend who had a restaurant for sale, but neither of those really worked out. So they knew I was, interested, and they were very supportive of helping me move on when I felt it was ready to move on.
So the Sacramento opportunity, you asked for their advice, right? That's why you brought them there, but it was to get their opinion on your maybe acquiring that or making that your
Right,
project.
and to see if they wanted to share that with me.
Ah, okay.
Because it could have happened either way. And
Sure.
So anyway, they continuing as managing, and then one day Michael Clark, and as a lot of partnerships are, one person kind of watched over one place and one person kind of watched over another, and Michael was the one that was most involved with Shadowbrook, Michael Clark that is, and then his partner Michael McClellan was a little bit more involved in the Crow's Nest. And so one day Michael Clark mentioned to me or said to me, Ted, why don't you make us an offer we can't refuse? We're kind of getting a little burnout at this business.
Wow, mid-'70s or late 70s?
Yeah, in between mid and late 70s,
Okay.
so about 1977 or so.
Got it.
And I said, "You're kidding." He said, "No, we like it, but we're like to do some other things too, and so make us an offer." That we can't refuse. And I said, well, that offer is going to come with the biggest note in the world with it. And he laughed and he said, we realize that, but we have great confidence in you. You've run the place for a couple of years now, and we're willing to do that.
Wow. So that was that. How did you come up with you came up with a good price and very little down, and they carried the rest for a while. Yeah.
Yeah. As I said, exceptional terms, to do that. And when Michael mentioned that to me, I asked him what they were going to do with the Crow's Nest, and he said that they were not likely, but intended to sell that as well. And I said, well, I think it's really important to keep the places connected. And the former manager of the Crow's Nest, who I knew peripherally because we played basketball together and such, and after work we all would go over to the Crow's Nest for a final drink at the bar, et cetera, and socialize. And he had gone to San Francisco and bought a bar restaurant in the financial district of San Francisco, and it was operating it. And then he and his partners had just started a restaurant on, I think it was Lombard Street. No, Scott Street,
Okay.
near Scott and Lombard. And they were nearly done with that. And so I asked Mike, what do you think if Bob came back and was a partner and we bought both places together? And Mike said yes, because initially when he said, we intend to sell it, he said, and we don't really want to sell it to you. That's difficult because it's to run two busy places with one person.
Right.
And I said, well, I absolutely knew that because I saw the two of them and how much they worked. Those two people just worked with two
that
places.
That was Mike Clark and
Mike McClellan.
Okay. Now you mentioned Bob's name. That would be Bob Muncy.
Bob Muncy.
Okay,
Yeah.
who is your current partner in both restaurants.
Right. Well, yeah. Although with the Crow's Nest, Bob retired about 10 years ago.
Oh.
And so at that time, I was still having fun and liked the business. Bob wasn't having as much fun as he used to have. Different lifestyle. Bob got married late in life for the first time and didn't have children. I have 4 children with, private school tuitions and weddings and those things. And so, and I still loved what I was doing. And so I said, well, I can't run both. We need to pick one. And moving forward, he said, well, we should pick the Shadowbrook. You're most familiar with it. And so they, Bob decided that for the best future of the Crow's Nest, he had a long-term manager there. His name is Charles Meyer. And so we transferred our lease to Charles. He had been there, I think, 19 years. He started as a busboy, et cetera, so he knew the place well. And Charles is there today, and he is very accomplished and doing a great job at the Crow's Nest, and he's the decision maker there now. We're very much interested in his success because we stand between the Port District and him, and we don't want to have to, cover any missing rent payments or something like that. So, but Charles has flourished there. He developed that old fish. What was it called? Fisherman Supply Place that was next to there, and then now it's the Crow's Nest Beach Market, where there's a lot of gifts in there and such. And so Charles has done that, and the little coffee shop. He's brought in a partner there at the harbor as well, and so he's doing a great job running it. And then I have been having great fun just running the Shadowbrook, and my partner Bob is having great fun being retired. He travels and has some hobbies and. Is not missing work at all.
Somewhere in my head, I seem to have a recollection, hopefully correct, that Bob's son has something to do with the operation of the Crow's Nest.
No,
they never had children, so how could he have a son?
Right. He has a brother.
Okay,
he actually has two brothers, and
right.
his brother Jack was the general manager at the Crow's Nest for a long time. Jack Muncie, who lives up in San Lorenzo Valley. And such.
That's what I was thinking.
Yeah.
Where was is it still the restaurant in the financial district in San Francisco?
Yes, but he sold his interest to his partners. So when he moved back to Santa Cruz to be the operational manager for the Crow's Nest.
I got it. Okay, well that sort of brings things into current focus, I guess. But where do you begin with some of the anecdotal stories? That is probably a limitless supply, huh?
Yeah. And they've changed. Thankfully, they've changed because the 70s were a pretty wild time in this town for restaurant. On Saturday night, there would be 24 people in the bar at 5 to 2, and we'd have to pick up glasses and tell people you need to go home. And now, 2019, 2020, at 5 minutes to 2, we're probably at home on our third dream. The restaurant had probably closed its doors even before midnight because society's changed. Those late hours for people, and drinking was more of a quantity, not quality issue in those days, et cetera. So yeah, a lot of great old stories.
You never resumed the serving of lunch?
No, not in that style. We tried to open up earlier in the bar where we would serve food, and you can never predict if it's going to be busy or slow. And if it's too busy and people had to wait a long time for tables, and at lunch, a lot of them are working and don't, have the time for waiting list and such. So, and it was a lot of work to make very little, and we thought it better to focus our efforts in trying to make the dinner experience as best it could be.
Now, the property itself. Mm-hmm. Okay, I remember the property. I can't remember exactly when it happened, but I think it was in the late 80s or early 90s that there was a tremendous expansion or improvement, I should say, on the walking going down. You have those concrete steps, and I'm a big proponent of concrete being, as close to, timeless as possible. And though it costs more money than just about any kind of construction, I think it's well worth it. And you guys did an amazing job. I remember the old stairway that was sort of,
it was
funky.
Funky, and an assortment of asphalt-covered ramps that were in some places steep and slippery in the wet weather, and especially when a little moss would grow on it. It's
dangerous.
It was, and there was a lot of slip and falls, and so that all happened actually in 1997. One day, that project started one day after our 50th anniversary, which we had a big to-do at the restaurant. And the very next day, we started demolition of the bar, which was part of that whole project.
Now, the cable car was probably there from day one, right?
No, it was put in I believe either 55 or 57. I wish I knew for sure. So that would have been in Frank Podesta and Virginia Philippe's era. They installed that, and the elevator company was out of San Francisco. They're still there, called Dewan Elevator Company, and it certainly is an attraction to the place. It's also a large part of our overhead budget.
I can imagine.
To maintain, you know.
And when it goes down, and it does, it's mechanical and it's electric.
Yeah.
It's got to be horrible.
Yeah. And you can guarantee that it's going to go. It won't go down Monday afternoon. It'll go down Saturday night. So
right.
It seems like Murphy's Law takes effect when that happens. But yeah, over the years, we were fortunate to have a great association with a fellow named Chris Bear, who he's like a mad scientist and MacGyver put together. He knows how to do everything, and I mean literally everything. And so he redesigned the mechanics of the cable car to be more mechanical than electrical, and because it's outside and it's exposed to the elements and such. And that cut our overhead probably by 2/3.
Really?
By doing that.
So this is a local guy that you got.
Local guy, and he actually is a designer. He designed the second floor expansion of the Crow's Nest. Years before that, he helped my partner and I when we bought the business in '78. And the first thing we did, we had two projects. We had a creekside patio that was outside, had overhead heaters, had 10 tables, and we were often embarrassed as well as stressed out because it looked like a great day. Weather prediction wasn't as sharp as it is today, and so everything looked like it's going to be nice and sunny, and then you take reservations, and then about 4 o'clock in the afternoon a thunderstorm comes through. And so we just knew we had to do something about that. So anyway, Chris helped design that room and the stairway down to it. It's called the greenhouse dining room today. And then we also connected another dining room that was all separate by itself. It only had 5 tables, and it's called the garden room. And what was unique about the garden room and a very good, I think, portrayal of Chris's mind and ability and the great designer that he is. He sees things in his mind that are already built, and then he kind of walks around in the room and he fine tunes it from there. So the garden room was all by itself, and we didn't like that because there was only one door in and one door out, and you had to walk and expose yourself to the elements, rain and everything to get into it and out. So that wasn't going to work. So we said we need to connect this to the main part of the building, and that way we can seat it through the main part of the building and not people to have to go out the front door of the restaurant, down one flight, and then the garden room door. And that room by itself had a tree right next to it. And Chris's brilliant solution was, we're not getting rid of the tree. We're going to make
build around it.
We're going to put it inside the building.
I think that is my favorite table, the one where I can touch the tree.
Yeah. That's
a very healthy tree.
Yeah, and in that room at the time, the garden room had a peaked roof, and when Chris's redesign with it, he not only enclosed the tree inside the room, he made the roof flat, and it became a patio for bar customers up there, and it is very popular today as an outside part of our bar service.
Holy Christmas! Yeah. Back in 1973, I was working for the local cable TV channel. And one of the things, did a news feature program that was a half hour every evening, and it was a most fun job you can imagine for a guy like me.
I bet.
And one of the things that we did was go visit the Crow's Nest. And there was not the Crow's Nest, the Shadowbrook. And on one of the posts, there was a barefoot guy, sort of a hippie-ish looking guy, who was strumming a guitar and was really good. And I just sat there. I took the portable video camera and started recording him. And I have that recording somewhere. I got to get it. I got to post it on YouTube or somehow get it to you.
Let me know when you do.
Oh yeah. So we're through with hour number one of the KSCO Saturday. Ted.
At our local weather outside KSCO, it's currently 62 degrees. Today we're expecting a high of 76. Overnight temperatures getting down to the low 50s. Patchy fog overnight, sunny skies for your Sunday as well as Monday. KSCO News Talk time 11:06. Time now for hour number 2 of the Saturday special on KSCO.
Oh, hello, darling. I hate to hang up on you, but I'm sorry, baby, but I have to go. It's time for that wonderful record show. I'd love to visit, but you'll have to call back. KSCO has the inside track.
Okay. Welcome to hour number. I just read an upsetting email, so I'm all discombobulated. But we're gonna have a fun time anyhow.
I'm sorry, baby, but I really gotta go to KSCO Radio. Bye.
I shouldn't be so upset, but it was from the offended listener that I responded to. And I responded in a very respectful way yesterday. But anyhow, welcome to hour number 2 of the Saturday special on your favorite radio station. What a presumptive statement that everybody listening, I just assume it's their favorite radio station. How can it not be? We're so different. We're so real. We don't...
More characters per square mile, as you always say.
No. Santa Cruz has more characters per square inch than any place else on the planet, and we take advantage of it. You know?
Yeah.
So, anyhow, Ted Burke is the co-owner of Shadowbrook and Crow's Nest, actually.
Formerly.
Formerly. Oh, okay.
This is Charles Meyer, former manager, is now the person in charge at the Crow's Nest.
Ah, okay. And Dave Michaels is here with his mask, and I believe it's a legal mask. Oh, no, it's an illegal mask, according to our esteemed engineer, Richard.
Is this illegal?
It's illegal. I think you are going to be arrested.
Well, I took it from a doctor, so that means they got good stuff then.
Okay, what you got, Dave?
I am doing this promo through a face mask, MZ, because I don't want anybody to catch my germs. If I do have any, I don't want anybody to catch them, so I'm wearing a face mask while I'm doing this. What we have out at the Dave Cave, MZ, I want to remind people, is Ultimate Daily Classic. This is just one of the many items that we have there. This is recommended by Dr. Wallach to help with blood pressure. Ultimate Daily Classic. There are 90 tablets in here. This is a 1-month supply. Ultimate Daily Classic for your blood pressure. Vitamin D. Right now, everybody needs to take vitamin D. It's very essential to keep your immune system healthy and to keep you healthy so that you can battle any baddies that are out there. Mm-hmm. And the Rev, which is to help you burn calories. This is part of the weight loss pack. The Rev, R-E-V, is helped and designed to burn calories, burn fat.
How cool. And it burns so much of it that you have to sort of step around it, like the people have to step around the you-know-what in San Francisco.
Right, yeah. Well, I don't know if it's going to work like that, MZ, but this is designed to help you burn fat. That's the Rev, part of the weight loss pack. Vitamin D, another item that we carry, and Ultimate Daily Classic, which helps with blood pressure.
I'm laughing, Dave, because I've never seen you in a mask.
I know.
Let alone an illegal one.
Well, you have to get used to this, MZ. It's our civic duty. And we want to remind people that this is an official. What is this, Josh? Is this a law that's going on right now? A mandate?
It is a mandate. Yes.
A mandate.
Even our phones alerted it to us this morning.
Yeah, I got that too. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh.
Did everyone get that? Not an Amber Alert, but wireless emergency alert.
Yeah.
Yeah. Basically, you have to wear a face covering, and they do not want people wearing like the N95s or high grade masks because of how they're in a huge shortage. And
so they don't want you to use something that'll work. Of course, I'm not bothered by that at all, because to me, I think it's going to cause more poor health than preserve good health.
Yeah, I'm a little shook up by it, because I had already stocked up on a few N95 masks well before this. It was just because, like, I had to bike during the campfire, and like that smoke was everywhere throughout the Bay and Central Coast, and like they could even see that all the way to New York. But I needed that, yeah, I have those masks now, and I feel weird wanting to wear them out because I feel somebody might give me grief over them.
Well, Dave, you sound fine, and you're talking through the mask.
I'm talking through the mask right now.
Actually, you do sound a little muffled.
Yeah.
What do you think, Josh Stevens?
Definitely a little muffled, but I mean, it's not. It's kind of reminds me of how a lot of the TV shows who'd have do live late night shows. The comedians, for example, various comedians, they are filming from home, and their sound quality is so much different because they don't have a whole engineering team like they normally do because of the whole social distancing.
All they really need to do is just use a lavalier mic instead of the mic out of the computer that makes it sound room echoey. That's all they need to do.
What are they doing?
I don't understand.
I don't know either,
I
MZ.
really don't.
If you have any questions about longevity products, MZ, I'm out at the Dave Cave every Saturday from 10 a.m. till 2 p.m. Every Saturday, 10 a.m. till 2 p.m. For as long as the coronavirus is going on, I'm in Salinas on Thursdays, Monterey on Fridays.
Dave, are we gonna be having not sales, but with you present on the weekdays?
I think that's coming up. As I think we're getting ready to. The Santa Cruz County is getting ready to reopen businesses. I believe. Actually, I believe selling health supplements that we are welcome to do that anyways. So I think that'll be coming up soon.
All right.
Okay.
Great. Thank you, Dave Michaels. All right. Here we are at the beginning, pardon me, of the hour number 2 of the KSCO Saturday Special. Our special, why do you think they call it the Saturday Special? Because we have a special guest today, whose name is Ted Burke, co-owner of Shadowbrook Restaurant. One of the coolest restaurants. We didn't even talk about the food at the Shadowbrook Restaurant. Now, it's a world-class atmosphere restaurant. I think it's a world-class food restaurant as well.
Well, thank you, Michael.
Yeah, and so you have a world-class chef there because you can't have world-class food without a world-class chef, or can you?
And we do. We're fortunate to have a fellow by the name of Michael Cameron, who is not only creative, but runs a very efficient, clean kitchen, is well respected by the people who work in the prep department, as well as the cooks and the salad people and the dessert people. He's a great leader, and he's a great culinary talent. We're very fortunate.
Something that blew my mind years ago about the Crow's Nest, not the Shadowbrook. Someone told me, I think in the early 90s, that I was curious about the number of employees, and they just said 250. What? 250 employees for the Crow's Nest restaurant back then?
Yeah.
Is it too personal a question to ask how many employees you have?
Well, it's not at all, and I will tell you. But I will tell you that when I ask people to give me their best guess of how many employees we have, because often they'll ask, and I'll say, well, before I tell you, how many do you think?
Yeah.
And they'll go. So now remember, we're only open for dinner. We're not open for lunch. We're not open for brunch. And we are open 7 nights a week. And I would get ranges, from 35 to 75
right.
or so.
That's what I would have guessed, yeah.
And we have 136 on our payroll. And the Crow's Nest, because it serves breakfast, lunch, and dinner, has an excess of 250 employees.
Wow. So what do you think is going to happen when this virus thing blows over, if it ever does, with regard to the restaurant industry?
Yeah, I think it's forever changed in many respects, and some things I think will come back to normal, but and there's so many different sides of this industry. For example, these people who run restaurants that are set up for takeout food and curbside pickup, et cetera. I think that's going to linger. I think, they're finding that. I have a great friend, former manager actually, as well as a friend, who's got a wonderful Italian restaurant in Pacific Grove. And Italian food to go is, a great sort of cuisine because it holds well and it travels well and can be reheated easily. Very tough to do with prime rib and au jus,
Yeah.
etc. So anyway, he says he takes orders from 4:30 until 7 o'clock, and he's doing about between 50 and 70% of the business that he used to do and to-go food, and he's done shortly after 7. He says, I kind of like this.
And the overhead is down too, right?
Yeah, he has.
Not the rent, obviously, but
Yeah, and he's got one waiter to help him. It's he and his wife. She runs the front. He's in the kitchen. And so anyway, I think that to-go pickup model will stay. Another big change that I can see happening are restaurants that cater to offices and people who are working in offices during the daytime. A lot of businesses have found, much to their surprise, that they can get by with their employees working at home. And it isn't such a detriment as it used to, at least as in their mind. And I think that's going to be permanent, and it will affect not only restaurants, but it'll affect probably office rents and such, because the supply will start to exceed the demand for that. But when the demand and the number of people working in offices decreases, that's going to impact those restaurants located and who catered to office workers. So I can see an impact in that segment as part of the future.
there's a few little silver linings here. And I think a silver lining that's very dramatic now is the traffic. I go between Bay Area, San Francisco, and Santa Cruz quite frequently. Now I'm also going between San Francisco and Solano County frequently, and it takes so much less time now.
Just around here.
Yeah.
And because of my age and how long I've been around, my peers and associates that are my age, we say to each other, this is just like Santa Cruz used to be. Where you turn on a street and you don't see a car for 2 blocks or 3 blocks, coming the other way. It's just, it's nice. I don't think that's going to last, but I don't think it's going to get to be as busy as it used to be either.
Wow. And I've been doing the 30-second commute for 40 years, ever since 1980. And I wouldn't have it any other way. I mean, it's just so cool to go to work, and work in your pajamas or naked or whatever, So, anyhow, Ted Burke is here, and we're going to open the phone lines finally, right? I mean, but you were thinking it was never going to happen. You want me to take number 1, Josh Stevens?
But first.
Oh, the jaunty thing?
Yeah, what about that? You want to knock it out?
Yeah, can you do it?
Absolutely.
Okay, good. Jaunty McCollier is our director of digital media. And typically at the beginning of hour number 2 or somewhere near there, he gives an update of digital stuff here at KSCO. We're a radio station, so most of our listeners are just used to turning on the radio, and there we are. But as time goes on, those people are going to expire, including me, and we really need to be able to go with the program here and get more digital. So we have a digital guy, and Jaunty makes his digital report. He's also making a COVID, Santa Cruz County report every day. But it's my understanding that his daughter is turned 8 today, so he didn't want to come. He didn't want to do it live on the phone. He sent this recording, and Josh is going to play it. Right? You got it, Josh? 3, 2, 1.
Hi, my name is Jaunty McCollier, KSCO's Director of Digital Media. First, I just want to remind you quickly that if you're enjoying the show, visit SaturdaySpecial.com. Sign up for the newsletter, subscribe to the Saturday Special YouTube channel, and keep the conversation going. Now, I'm about as well-versed in conspiracy theories as anyone can be. I think the moon is likely an ancient alien spacecraft. I think Atlantis was a real civilization. I think there are secret societies and occult rituals behind most major events, and I think that just about every second conspiracy theory you have ever heard is probably true, except the theory that the moon landings were faked. The moon landings were real. If they were faked, we wouldn't know the moon was an alien base. But when my friend asked me a few weeks ago what I thought about the idea that the coronavirus outbreak was some sort of conspiracy, I said, bro, if it was a conspiracy, I'd be the one telling you about it. When the puppeteers of power and the architects of control sit around a dimly lit room doing secret handshakes and smoking expensive cigars, they can have great confidence that we, the sheeple, will neither comprehend nor complain about their machinations. Back in January, more and more vaccinations were increasingly mandated across the planet. Plans to install 5G networks moved along uninterrupted. We all gave up privacy for convenience in dozens of cell phone apps and online profiles. We thought democracy was about who the bigger idiot was. We were all too busy to really think much about what was going on in the world, and most of us were way more interested in sports or Netflix shows than science or economics. No one had time or incentive to complain or notice political or societal corruption, not when the unemployment rate was 3.4%. 3 months later, we suddenly realized that most of the economic activity we thought we had to do to survive was actually non-essential. We found out that good scientists, not sports stars or pop artists, are some of our most valuable assets, and half of us dove into a debate about math or statistics for the first time in our lives. Half of us found out the population of our own countries and learned about the demographics of many others we didn't even know existed. We found out that there are birds in the cities we've never heard before. We found out the air gets clean if we stop rushing around. We found out 5G networks, which may have some health risks, are already in some of the cities in many parts of the world, or that Bill Gates is a big fan of vaccination. That was all true in January, but no one cared in January. We just found out how fragile and unnecessary most of the oil industry is. We found out the most important people in the world are not investment bankers or tech entrepreneurs or CEOs or movie stars. The most important people are farmers and the folks who work at the local food store. The most important people keep the power on and the toilets flushing. Lots of things happen when the unemployment rate skyrockets, but you can count on angry people who really care what is or isn't happening. And that's not a formula for controlling the masses. It's a formula for losing control of the masses. I've heard people say the phrase inalienable rights more times in the last 4 weeks than I have in the last 4 years. Our local, state, and federal governments have been under a microscope of public scrutiny like never before, and our legislators are suddenly competent enough to pass unprecedented bipartisan legislation in a desperate attempt to get us back in our cages before we all start to notice what's really been going on this whole time. From Istanbul to Dakar, Bangalore to Botswana, from Karakoram to Detroit, the sheeple of the world have never been so awake, and besides some social distancing measures, never been so close to seizing the reins of power from the Jesuits and the Freemasons and the Bonesmen and the billionaires and the transdimensional Anunnaki alien reptile elites. Sure, the same powerful people who worked in the shadows are moving as quickly as they can to try and gain some advantage from the situation, but I seriously doubt the coronavirus pandemic was part of some intentional plan, for the same reason that you don't put your ice cream cone in the microwave or let the air out of your tires before you go for a drive. And if you stuff a sock in your pants to try to impress someone, you put the sock in the front, not the back. Well, the coronavirus has shoved the sock in the back of the pants of the wardens of our mental prison, and they're walking around wondering why you aren't impressed. If you're a conspiracy theorist like I am, don't desperately curate the tidal wave of overwhelming information to maintain the illusion that the collapsing prison is in fact just a sleight of hand from a more powerful secret force. Because in January, no one questioned anything. But today, if we seize this opportunity, everything is up for debate. Thank you all for listening. Thank you, MZ, for sharing a part of your show with me. I'm very busy today, celebrating a very important 8-year-old's birthday. I hope you all enjoy the rest of the show.
We all will enjoy the rest of the show, or else. Now, Josh Stevens.
MZ, Michael Zwerling.
It looks like the three people we have on hold, they just want to talk about the virus. They don't want to talk about the subject. So are you screening that way? Are you letting people know that this is a Saturday special? We're not going to talk about the virus, and we're not going to talk about, I mean, other than...
I think some of them might have restaurant ties, like namely like the one about masks. Because, like, what if reopening means we have to wear masks, for example?
Ooh,
so,
okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, good.
They
because
might be able to frame it.
every other talk show on KSCO for the last 5 or 6 weeks has been wall-to-wall COVID-19, whatever the hell it is, 19. So, yeah, I want to keep this to subject, ladies and gentlemen. So let's go ahead and... take Dawn and Salinas. Dawn is usually a very cogent and intelligent caller to KSCO. Are you going to be cogent and intelligent today as well, Dawn and Salinas?
I hope so. I hope I'm not going to talk crazy, but I might sound a little bit crazy to you. My thing is this. Santa Cruz County has opened itself up to a myriad of lawsuits with this mask deal. And you were saying about should we wear masks if we go back to work? Well, why isn't anybody putting out this? A mask restricts your breathing, and you're going to ask people who can hardly breathe to wear one while they're moving around, and if they drop dead in the store or drop dead in the bank, they're going to sue the county of Santa Cruz for forcing them to wear this mask that caused their heart attack. And my other part on this mask thing is, how come nobody's asking out loud, why is it the better the virus gets, the lower the deaths, the hospitals are not overcrowded, all this stuff, the rules get worse. The rules, now everybody's got to wear a mask, everybody's got to wear a glove, everybody's got to do the hokey pokey before they go into a store. What is going on here?
Got to do the hokey pokey. That's very funny, Don and Salinas. I always thought of you as a totally serious caller, very intelligent one, but I never thought of you as humorous. And I'm so happy that has come out today. And I'm also happy that you. Hey, were you listening to the whole Saturday special, or did you tune in later?
No, I listened to the first part. Yes.
Okay, so you know that I didn't talk about lawsuits and stuff like you are, but I was saying I can't wear these damn masks because I'll get sick from wearing the masks because I'm breathing recycled, spent air. You're supposed to breathe oxygen, not carbon dioxide.
That's true. Now, just imagine also, MZ, the denizens of downtown Santa Cruz, if you force them to wear a mask, what that mask is going to look like in a week.
Oh no, you have to. They're along with the edict that you must wear a mask. There will be an edict that says you must change the mask every day, or even more frequently.
Well, they ask them people to bathe too. Does that work? These people do not care. They have the hygiene is last on their list. First is getting drugs and such.
Thanks for calling 479-1080. There goes Don and Salinas. Here's Sharon in Soquel wants to ask Ted a question. Go ahead, Sharon. You're on.
Hey there. Thank you guys. Good to talk to you or hear from you guys. Ted, I love your restaurant Shadowbrook, and I just had a quick question. Monterey has a lot of conference facilities, in their hotels, and a lot of banquets and buffets. And I was wondering what Ted's thought was on going in the future about what's going to happen going, forward with these places that, cater to conference groups, large places that have buffets and trying to accommodate a lot of people in one room. And I'll take my answer off the air. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Sharon. What do you think, Ted?
Well, that's not a part of the segment of an industry that I'm familiar with, other than being an attendee. Mm-hmm. And I think they'll probably be the last to come online, or the last to return to some sort of normalcy. Large events, whether it's NFL football or Major League Baseball or even groups of 200 or 300. For example, at the Crow's Nest, you know, they have beach parties on Thursdays and during the summer there, where they'll attract, you know, 500 to 1,000 people. And I'm sure that that's probably not going to rebound you know, quite right away by any means. But I think you know, I wish Santa Cruz had some of these conference facilities. It would certainly help all the businesses in the off season here, as Monterey is fortunate to have those, and so a lot of their restaurants and as well as businesses that do depend on an active tourism business, you know, do well. They don't turn over quite as much as they do in Santa Cruz here because our winters are much bleaker.
I'm sure you recall a time when there was a big push for there to be a convention center, and it was to be at the, I think, 7-acre Lighthouse Field that continues to be, you know, undeveloped now. And I think that is what propelled Gary Patton to political prominence when he, back then in the 1973-74 era, made a big name for himself by coming up with the some sort of a voters initiative that stated that if passed, Lighthouse Field shall never, ever, ever, ever be used as a convention facility.
Yeah.
And there probably isn't any other land in the city of Santa Cruz that has that much space that's buildable.
Yeah,
so that was pretty much the end of that idea, huh?
Yeah, although, you know, Capitola does have an opportunity, I think, with their planned revision and remodeling of the Capitola Mall area.
Oh,
and
yeah.
They have plenty of parking. Capitola is located in the center part of the county. It's got, you know, about half a mile from the freeway, et cetera. And a conference hotel there would flourish and be such a boon to our community. It's
I haven't spent much time checking that out, but I believe they're talking about converting most of that to mixed use, mostly housing, which is needed.
Right.
Right?
That's the developer's intent, certainly to do that. I'm sure the city has some interest to see some community benefits and whatever happens there as well. And as you know, Michael, the TOT, the transient occupancy tax that hotels produce by charging their customers anywhere from 11 or 12%, depending where you are in the county, that all stays with a local city. Unlike sales tax, unlike property tax that go to a great majority of it goes to the state. Hotel taxes stay 100% in the jurisdiction of the hotel. And so cities are popular. They need it for their budgets. And Santa Cruz needs to have a conference hotel that would have meeting space for groups that meet in the off-season. Most of them meet in the off-season anyway because their customers and their employees, they're busy in the summer having vacations, or at least they used to.
Yeah.
And
I think it'll be that way again here, because you don't, you know, for day trips, people from the Bay Area, people from Monterey County,
sure,
can still and will want to come over here. Yeah. I think.
Yeah.
Anyhow, so.
And I think a lot of things like that will come back. And we were talking about you know, the restaurant industry and such. You know, a lot of people go to restaurants at the end of a long day, or to celebrate something or celebrate people. That's going to continue. We're not, you know, that's not going to go away. Those reasons will still linger, and people will go to restaurants because there's still going to be long days ahead of us. And as we all know, there's many wonderful reasons to celebrate.
Absolutely. What about the social distancing thing? Will restaurants be able to operate under those restrictions that were never there before? If you have to suddenly have half the number of tables?
Yeah, I don't think so, personally. I just can't see that working. I mean, how would you like to come into the Shadowbrook bar with your wife and have to have an empty bar stool in between you? You know, it's how is this, you know, practical? I can see masks for those businesses that really aren't hospitality, they're more food, like if you go to a Subway counter or a McDonald's counter or something like that, great. But fine dining, and you want your server to come up wearing a mask? No.
Or worst of all, yourselves.
Yeah. Yeah. And the tables aren't big enough. If you have a party of 6 or 8, they're all sitting around a table. You don't have 6 feet apart.
Yeah, for sure. Nancy and Carmel, what do you have on your mind?
Hi, MZ. I hope you're feeling great.
I'm feeling okay, thank you. Hope you are too.
Thank you. Stay well, please.
Okay.
For the world's sake. I'm calling to tell Ted that I was on Bay Avenue, probably on my way to Gales one day, and I had to pull over because I had my camera with me, and I took a picture of that darling mint green and checkered cab car they have.
Oh, yeah. Thank you for bringing that up. I was going to.
It is darling, and I was wondering what they do with it.
Great question, and an interesting story too. How we came about this was that we solicit, we call critic cards. You know, that we give at the end of the meal, and people can tell us what they like or didn't like. And really, one of the most of them were all praises, which we're very happy and gratified for. But occasionally there'd be a gripe, and most of those gripes were about inadequate parking. And yet we kind of laugh at that because we're probably the only restaurant in Capitol that has parking. And we have those 2 parking lots. But we also fight with customers and employees in the village who come up and use our lots because there's no charge, while the city charges a couple bucks an hour and such. So there's a shortage of parking, which we admitted, and we first thought, well, where do we find more parking? And the other side of it, if you want to say, think outside the box, is how do we reduce the demand for parking without reducing the amount of customers we have? And so the idea popped up of let's have a shuttle where we'd pick up local people and they wouldn't have to park and such. And so since Shadowbrook was founded in 1947, as we mentioned at the start of this program, we thought it'd be important to find an old antique taxi that was, a classic that was from around that area. And I found that taxi online in a classic called Hemmings. It's a kind of an automotive magazine, comes out monthly, where people sell classic and other kinds of cars. And it was in Atlanta, Georgia, and I bought it sight unseen, but talked to the fellow about it, and we had it shipped out here and repainted it and touched it up a little bit, and that became our first taxi. It's a 1950 Dodge Meadowwood, and it's got a very large back seat, as a lot of vehicles did back in those days. And it's we converted it from a 6 volt to a 12 volt and some other improvements. It kind of rivaled the cable car in upkeep there for a while. And people really seem to enjoy it, and it serves a great function. It allows, we almost eliminated any comments about can't find parking, because at the peak time of night, there's, we've probably had 7 pickups. And so there's, 7 parking places that would normally be filled aren't. And so people don't have to drive around and around waiting for one to open. It got to be so popular that we needed a second cab. And so I found much closer than Atlanta in Southern California. And this one I did go down and travel to take a look at it. A 1966 Checker taxi cab that was in a movie lot. And its actual last movie was in a Clint Eastwood movie, the fellow told me, in which I've forgotten the title. And so it was, it's had a great storied history, and we fixed it up just like we did the Dodge Meadowwood and this Checker cab. We even put the little sign on the back that those cabs used to have in those days, and we say from farm to table, from door to door. And we've picked up people, no charge to use it, that live or are staying within 3 miles of the restaurant because traffic, although you can't tell today, but normally you can't get around and go someplace more than 3 miles and get back within 15 minutes. And we have 15-minute intervals for pickup. So 3 miles is the limit. And the hotels love recommending us because their patrons from out of town don't have to get directions and such. And they we've find that people who like to celebrate and are worried about maybe having an extra glass of wine or two know that they have a free ride home.
That is so wonderful. It's great that you accommodate us like that. And I really appreciate the way you stick to the authenticity of everything.
Yeah.
It's right up my alley, and I applaud you. I wish I could go more often, but I live in Carmel, and if you were open for lunch, I'd do it all the time, but it's hard at night to drive that far just to go to dinner. So.
I understand, but I appreciate your kind words very much. Thank you.
Oh, I love your place. It's fabulous, and good luck forever.
Thanks, Nancy, for calling 479-1080. A line is open. Eastside Pete knows original owner, huh? Eastside Pete, are you there? Going once, going twice. Okay, Joe in Santa Cruz.
Yeah, I was in a National Guard tank unit stationed here in Santa Cruz, and I think it was in 1999. I think because of the floods, not fire. I think it was floods, and we got activated. And I don't know if it was our cooks or somebody set it up where we could eat at the Shadowbrook, and I think it was the Crow's Nest too. One night each. And that was one that I didn't know Shadowbrook existed because I only moved here until 1990, something like that. And I don't need a fancy restaurants. That was one fancy place, and that cable car thing, that was unique. And I was just wondering if Ted happens to remember what year that was, if at all.
I don't remember precisely the year, but I know that wasn't just an isolated time. We've done that during the earthquake days in 1989. I think the huge flood we had in the early 80s, where there was a mudslide and all the power went down that fed Santa Cruz. Et cetera. But, restaurants are really the cornerstone of communities, and to make themselves available for rescue workers and, people trying to put a community back together that has suffered infrastructure damages or the wrath of Mother Nature. We are that place. It's just not only to celebrate birthdays and anniversaries, but we are the community cornerstones.
Well, I thank you for that, because that kind of broadened my horizons and made me learn more about Santa Cruz, and that was great. So continue success with whatever you're doing, and thanks again.
Thank you for your kind words, too.
Thanks, Joe. Here's Joey in Live Oak.
That's Joey.
Okay.
Hi, guys. I've been listening all morning. My wife worked at the Crow's Nest for 25 years, and Ted and Blaine and Bob always took really good care of all their help. They had Christmas parties. They knew everybody's names. And I hardly know a surfer that wasn't a busboy, a bartender, or a cook, or a doorman, or something. So I appreciate his just support of the whole youth movement at that time, and we've all turned out pretty well. So I want to thank him.
Well, you're most welcome. And just a commentary on that. I don't think you were asking how many employees we had, and the surprising statistic, Michael. Here's another one that might surprise you: is that 1 out of every 3 Americans have worked in a restaurant at one time or another. And so,
certainly my first job.
Yeah.
At the Colonial Inn.
I remember that place.
Santa Cruz.
Yeah.
Don Stephanie was the owner.
They had Friday night Jupino there.
Yeah.
But anyways, thank you. If you had a girlfriend or a wife that worked in one of those restaurants, you were just the king. They knew you. They let you in, and so thank you.
Yeah,
okay,
you're welcome. Michael, commentary on that too. It's one of the things that I love about my role at the restaurant is I'm an active owner. I'm there. Used to be every night, even at my advanced age now, I'm there probably 2 to 3 nights a week, as well as during the daytime. And that's what I think is the best part of a restaurant. I would never want to be a restaurateur that's sitting in a desk in a corporate office someplace and, you know, crunching numbers and doing that. To look at the smiling faces, getting to know people, the regulars and such, there's nothing better. And that's why I started now 48 years and still loving the business.
Wow. Russ and Lori Wharton are fans who have sent this email, the subject of which says Shadowbrook. Enjoying your special with Ted Burke, my wife and I had our wedding rehearsal dinner at Shadowbrook in June of 1955. We will be celebrating our 65th anniversary on June 25th, hopefully at Shadowbrook. Tell Mr. Burke that the tram was there in 1955, although not as fancy. So.
Well, thanks, because I knew it was 55 or 57, and I'm glad that he had that information. I'll never remember from now on, for sure.
Okay. Colonel Terry has a compliment or two. Hi, Colonel Terry.
Well, I want to compliment the Shadowbrook and all of its staff for just a phenomenal experience every time I go there, and a phenomenal, unique component to Santa Cruz County. Thank you for running such a wonderful establishment, and the cable car tram is just so extraordinary the first time you use it, understandably. And my anecdote is I got out here from the East Coast again after years away, and I said to someone, I want to take this lady that I'm having a nice relationship with and somewhere romantic. And my friend said, well, Terry, what did you have in mind? And I said, to be honest, seduction. And he said, the Shadowbrook. All right. It was a wonderful evening, a wonderful forever. And again, my high compliments to you, sir. I hope you can reopen in some fashion, perhaps with just distancing. Maybe you could be the first to implement that in some fashion.
Yeah. Well, we hope to open up soon, too.
Okay.
And and we our moniker Romance and Dining isn't one that we started. That was Brad McDonald in 1947. Shadowbrook was called Romance and Dining. There's something innate there that just brings that out in people.
Absolutely. Listen, every continued success to you.
Thank you so much for the call.
Thanks for calling 479-1080, Colonel Terry. Tony is up next. Hey, Tony, you're on.
Hi, MC.
Hey.
Well, I've got several stories, but the Shadowbrook happens to be the favorite restaurant of my son, who's a world-famous scientist, geneticist, named Dr. Adam Cuspa. He now runs the Welch Foundation and doles out millions of dollars to various research organizations. Anyway, he always schedules his flights in so he can dine at the Shadowbrook. And it was one day last year when he was going to be a little late. He phoned me, so I drove my Volvo, which just had blown its engine with no water all the way over to the Shadowbrook. I parked it right in the front door and got in and was the last person seated that night. And they had to hold, I don't know how many people you have as staffing each table, but it seemed like 6 or 7 people that you have to hold over to serve my son at his favorite restaurant in the whole world. Now, he's a world traveler, which worries me a lot because he flies a lot. And Shadowbrook seems to be his favorite restaurant in the entire world. So I thought I had to call in and tell you that.
Well, I appreciate that story, and what I most appreciate about it is that we try to put our very best effort for the very first guest that walks in, and the very best effort for the last guest of the night.
One last thing. Can you tell me how many people you have serving every single table? Because I was sitting there eating sand dabs, and it seemed like there were 6 or 7 or maybe even more people that you had to hold over just to serve my son and me dinner.
Well, we enjoyed doing that, and and that includes the kitchen people as well.
Well, yeah, 10 people per table. That's amazing. Okay, thank you, MZ. Bye.
Okay, there goes Tony, and opens up a line here, but we do have about 10 minutes left only in the program. Sybil Hartman sends an email. Dear MZ, thank you so much for not talking virus news or very little Also, thank you for not using virus language and vocabulary. KGO airs nonstop virus news, so I stopped listening. Oh, that's nice. I am originally from Switzerland, and over there they are very positive for how it is going to look in the future, especially for businesses. They are predicting that it will go back to normal with very few minor exceptions. I hope that it will be the case here as well. Be well, Sybil. Thank you, Sybil, for calling, or for emailing MZ at ksco.com. Let's see if there's any other emails that I should read real quickly. Saturday specials. Okay, no, that's it. So let's go back to the phone lines here. On the do not accept list. Okay, how about Sam in SoCal? Hi, Sam in SoCal.
Hi.
Hey, how you doing?
Hi. I want to ask Ted if he knew Frank Podesta.
I did. In fact, Frank's son, Dennis Podesta, was a food server at Shadowbrook for a great number of years and did a great job. I also knew Frank from Pasatiempo, where he was an avid golfer. And
right.
I wish I was an avid golfer. I was an occasional golfer. He was quite a character.
Character. He was a character. He was one of my dad's favorite characters. Just a couple of quick stories. One time, this is back in the 50s, Frank shows up to play golf. No carts available. Frank was borrowing my father's Volkswagen. So he goes out, gets in the Volkswagen, drives it up to the first tee, plays 18 holes in his Volkswagen. Back in the 50s. Another time, this is Dad's story. Now, I don't know if it's true or not, but Frank and Danny Canepa were at Shadowbrook. It was a freezing cold night. They had no firewood. So Frank and Daddy, they grab a chair, they smash it up and throw it in the fireplace. Next thing you know, half the chairs were gone, and that was Frank. And that was Daddy. And back in the 50s, man, my dad had so many friends that were just fabulous characters. Yeah. And I want to thank you also for Shadowbrook. I was born and raised here. It's always been one of my favorite spots.
Thank you so much for that.
Yeah, thank you, Ed.
Thanks, Sam. Here's Rose in Santa Cruz. Hey, Rose in Santa Cruz.
Hi, listen. Well, you know, we're alma maters, really, because if you recall, you used to always serve a private room for the psychologists having their yearly dinners at your restaurant. And this goes way back because for whatever reason, it's been quite a few years since I've even heard from Santa Clara. But of course, there's a lot of new people working there and things have changed. And I think most of the graduates that were also part of my group have passed away. So it's dwindled down a lot. But they were the best. You gave us a private room, and we just really always had a ball there. We could make noise, we could laugh, we could talk, you know. And the food was great, and the service was great. And you came out and you talked with us and all that. And of course, I'm going way back in history now. But I can't recall the last dinner we had there, the last meal, and what year it was. But it was quite a while ago. And I guess, you know, but I'm just hoping that you're going to open up again real soon. And whether or not, you know, we can have anything from Santa Clara again, I can just get over there with my friends and have dinner.
Well, we'll look forward to that.
All right. Thank you very much for Rose in Santa Cruz for calling 479-1080.
Mm-hmm.
Here is a. You want something?
I was just going to make a comment about the private rooms. We're really fortunate as the restaurant is really a restaurant of evolution, where a patio was enclosed and became a dining room, and something was added here and there. And so we have 4 different private dining areas, plus one off the bar. And so it's great for groups and small groups. I mean, we're not a hotel where you can put 300 people into a ballroom or something, but for family gatherings, small business gatherings, it's a great location.
What would you
not only for
call
roommates.
the maximum comfortable size for a gathering?
The largest room will hold about 40 6.
That's nothing to sneeze at.
No.
Right. Hey, Marlene in Lake Tahoe, you're on with Ted Burke and MZ.
Oh, hi. I just wanted to say how much I personally have really enjoyed the Shadowbrook. It's one of the highlights when we're in town. And we're born and raised in Santa Cruz. So I did prom and anniversaries and whatnot. And Ted, you have always been so gracious. Our kids went to Holy Cross, got to meet you a few times. And you were just so gracious about doing things for the school. And even, when we had a couple of anniversaries there, you sent over hors d'oeuvres that, it was like totally unexpected, but just so kind. And the atmosphere at the Shadowbrook is just incredible. We love going there. So I just wanted to tell you how much we appreciate the quality that you have perpetuated with the restaurant. And we really look forward to next time we come down there, which is, I guess we have to wait until this quarantine routine is over. But we definitely will make a beeline over there and keep up the great atmosphere that you have there. It's lovely.
Well, thank you. And when you do come in, please reintroduce yourself to me. As I say, I'm usually there. If they say I haven't seen him, say, would you please look in his office?
Great.
Okay.
All righty. Hey, thanks, Marlene.
Bye-bye.
I have to mention that there are two extraordinary. All the food is good. I've never had a bad meal or anything less than just a perfect meal at Shadowbrook. But I've never heard of a place that offers you water that's regular water or sparkling water, just no charge. And they'll bring you all the sparkling water you want. I mean, that's a mark of brilliance and genius, I think.
Well, I love sparkling water as part of my meal, and so I don't think we need to pay for fancy bottles and such. And all our water is filtered as well, so it's city water, but it's filtered. And then we have a carbonator that makes it taste like it just came out of a bottle from Italy.
Yeah, and the other thing, I can't think of another restaurant. It probably is, but I sure can't think of one that serves warm sourdough rolls with butter. I'm drooling all over the microphone. I'm wondering if people notice moisture on their radios. That's what's happening here. Okay, let's see what Rory in Watsonville has to say.
Ted, Rory Watsonville, the company I work with, we've had numerous meetings with international clients and colleagues down on the patio outside right by the creek. And all I can say is, wow. And you guys do a great job. Everybody from out of the country is always impressed. They're amazed. So
thank you, Rory.
I hope you can open up soon, and we look forward to toasting your reopening.
Thank you for those best wishes. Much appreciated.
Take care.
Wow. Hey, our apologies to John and Salinas Lee and Spreckles, Richard and Marina, Mark in Santa Cruz, and Dr. Ober. Oh, no, not the doctor, because he's the guest for the next program. Which, by the way, this is a very special day, not only because we have Ted Burke as the Saturday special guest, but Tom Quinn returns to KSCO with Perspectives.
That he
At least
does.
for a couple of weeks. At least for a couple. He's got a great show ahead. So stay with us, please, because that will be the very next show with the wonderful Tom Quinn and his orchestra. Ted Burke, I knew it would be a fun show, and I was right. I'm never wrong when it comes to these kinds of things.
You were 100% right.
Okay, great. And the 2 hours? Didn't the 2 hours seem like 2 minutes?
It's over already.
Can you believe it? I mean, it's the absolute truth here. So as I'll join all the people in the callers, all the callers who say continued success.
Thank you.
You're doing a great job, and hope many years continue. So that's it. See you all next week, gang. Thanks for tuning in.
That's all, folks.